people have to circumvent that missing section, or in some cases drive through that section to get to pavement, to get to another outlet. And so what's being proposed is that we amend the master development agreement to allow them to develop 14 acres. So does everyone know where I'm speaking of? Everyone's familiar with it enough? So Lindsay, if you could show that plat that I sent to you by email. This is what they're proposing, an allowance, an amendment allow them to develop 14 lots. And from our perspective, what's beneficial here is to complete that missing section of road. So the way that the master development agreement is written, it's front-loaded with a lot of improvements that they need to do. And, it's for good reason at the time. One of the biggest requirements is that they need to install the pump station concurrently with the first phase. And with that pump station, they need to construct all the piping, which is off-site, and bring it to the first phase. And at the time, we didn't have as much secondary water developed. We've moved forward, and we've done quite a few phases since we first conceived this project, and our water situation is looking better. And as you know, we have another phase that will be constructed next spring, at least it's scheduled to. This little area is serviced really by all the development and infrastructure that's already in existence surrounding it, even the stormwater. So the way that this subdivision will have stormwater mediated will be through 775 East out to the Holmgren Nature Preserve Trailhead, and there's some storm drain basins there. So functionally, it makes sense that this will function fine without some of those off-site improvements. I think the only thing that it would lack would be secondary water, and some of these other lots also do not have secondary water, but they would need to, of course, install all the piping for secondary water. And the next phase would be required to install all the improvements that we had talked about. So the issue is at hand is that in order for them to be able to record the subdivision and sell lots, we need to amend the master development agreement. And essentially, it is this development was done through agreement by zoning, and in order for those agreements to be valid, we need to go through the rezone process. It was very clear in the master development agreement, or pre-annexation agreement, I think is the exact title of it, that that some of those obligations would occur with the first phase. That said, it is a discretionary decision by the city council. I think they were trying to hit this construction season potentially, but they would need to move forward really ahead of getting the rezone formalized, most likely, in order to get it done this construction season. Otherwise, we'll be another winter with the status quo. They can go ahead and construct, and that would not violate the master development agreement. It's just recording of phases that trigger some of those requirements. So they do have approved construction drawings for the most part to go ahead and construct this. They're just seeking to be able to record a plat that would dedicate the road and would allow for them to sell lots, those 14 lots that you see there.
This does not change the current zoning. It just changes the plat in a sense. In other words, it's still R whatever, right?
Right, yeah. It changes the phasing, really, is what it does. Yep, that's a great way to.
It needs to be done ASAP.
Yeah, we all
Agree.
agree, we all agree to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a lot of concern of people with that road.
Years,
We
yeah.
tried plowing it in all winter, but somebody would take their thing and plow it out, so they couldn't drive out there. Somebody has hit one of them valves,
Yeah,
but yeah, it don't look good, it don't fit. UPS, I know GPS puts people to that, so I'm all in favor of getting it done.
we're not making at least not here, we're not making a decision. That'll come down the road, doesn't it?
So because it is a rezone, we'll need to go through the public process to notice notice the rezoning, and we'll have to have a public hearing at the planning commission and then come to the city council for final approval.
So explain one more time, why does it have to be rezoned?
Because it's zoning by agreement, and so the agreement right now is very clear that they need to do some of these improvements before they can record.
A lot of the secondary water improvement and all that kind of thing.
Right. And so it's essentially contract zoning. In order for contract zoning to be valid, and it is valid as long as you go and follow the public process to rezone. And so,
As the way I see it too, this becomes a win-win for us and for them, because we get the road in, plus it gives them a little bit of a cash base to start putting towards developing other parts of the development, so.
Michael, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I can give you a little bit of the context here. And with regard, I think the rezone phrasing is a little confusing because it's not a change, it's just the rezone process. And it spells that out in the agreement, in that pre-annexation agreement, that essentially if any amendment at all to that agreement will be treated like a rezone. So it has to go back to P&Z and then back to city council through public hearing process. So this section is exactly what was included in our original phase one. There's no change to this. It's just the change from bringing the secondary water over from the canal site. We have been, I think busily working on we tried to get all of phase one in. We bid it all together. The year got away from us, essentially. We got to a point where our contractor said, look, if we started this tomorrow, we can't get pavement in on this large of a project. And so we started thinking, well, shoot, I've got some calls about this section of road, and we thought, well, maybe at the very least we can get this section in. If we can get this section platted, we can get the roads dedicated, get some of those lots sold and get that road finished is kind of our thought. If we move pretty quickly, we can get that done this year according to our contractor. We're gonna have a little bit of a delay since we're going through the public process. So at the end of the day, I think on our end, we are willing, and I think our outlook is that we're gonna have to take a little bit of a risk because we're gonna have to get started on this. So we'll get started before we know whether or not we can file a plat. So that's our act of faith, I guess. And so, yeah, this is, I guess, obviously just the workshop area. You guys can't give us a decision, but that's our intent, is to get that in as quickly as we can.
Well, thank you, Michael. That helps, and that'll be a great thing to finally get done. So we're looking forward to the completion of that phase. All right. Let's see. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
okay.
Okay, let's see. Well, we've got Curtis here. Why don't we sort of discuss, take a few minutes and sort of discuss where we're at with, maybe you can answer any questions council might have regarding the budget, the tax increase, all of the above. If you can, I think this just might be a good time to go back, have a back and forth discussion and answer any questions that the council might have. And then if we don't have too much to say there, we can go right into, just go through the agenda, because I think that's about where we're at right now, is talking about that, and then we'll move into the agenda and answer any questions we have there. So maybe to start it off, Curtis, could you just kind of give us a quick rundown of, and then that'll help us maybe with some questions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you bet. I think one of the hardest things, Lyle Vance was awesome. He presented sheets and they went all the way back to March. and this is, so we're coming up on, what is that, 5 months? We're gonna start it, getting almost to the 6th month of having this discussions, and the council has had a lot of very valuable input as we've tried to formulate up this budget to be ready to be passed. The obvious concern is inflation takes its toll. I've heard that repetitively. And throughout the years, the cities has found various ways to deal with inflation, to deal with how are we going to keep people fairly compensated? How are we going to keep enough public safety here? How are we going to make sure for the size of city that we have, we're truly investing for what the citizens deserve? And when you look at that, the city council has been very prudent over, what do we figure, over 30 years, was it?
Well, it's since 1997.
Yeah, so since 97.
Or before.
So, of very, very prudent with how we've used people's property taxes. We just hit that point where something has to give. And so as a city, if you remember, we balanced all of the capital project needs that we have going out for the next few years. And I hope you remember that list because it was quite extensive and a little bit shocking. And so what we've presented to the city is this concept of setting aside sales tax as it's been dedicated in state law, setting aside, and remind me, Sean, was it 80% that we settled on? Only 80%, not 100%, 80% of the sales tax is being committed towards those capital projects that are going to be needed in the next few years. And also we balanced the needs of the police department. We went through and analyzed how many officers for the citizens and where would that put us and where do we need to be. We got a fire department that's transitioning from volunteer over to be more full-time and needing some expansion there to meet the needs of the citizens. And then in conjunction with that, planning, which is really an element, and I thought Sean stated it very well, it's a function of public safety. And I think actually has a chance to help the city in the future identify at what point will the growth hit a spot where additional police officers will be needed, because they can use projection models out and say, okay, at this point, yeah, we're going to have to invest in more in police. And so it helps make a lot of those calculations more readily available for the city, and it really becomes a true planning function that will help city councils going forward. So that type of investment is what we're asking the city council to adopt with this higher tax rate and really make it to where we're setting the city up for more success. And how do we really launch the city into the next century? Well, next decade. I don't want to go all the way to the next century, but I apologize for misspeaking. But realistically, I mean, we're at 2023. We're a third of the way through almost of this decade. It kind of shocks me to say it that way. But what are we planning the city to look like in 2030? What is the city council doing to resolve some of those concerns? And I think that the budget that's before you addresses a number of those needs and sets the council up to really provide for what the citizens need in that time frame. So with that quick summary.
So I got a question, if I may.
Sure.
How much does commercial industry and retail help out a city with these kind of expenses? For example, did Malto Mill and did West Liberty help us to have additional funds to provide for city employees and whatnot?
So a while back, we presented a tax graph.
Saw that.
And if you remember, for a number of years, Malto Mill and West Liberty Foods were both inside the RDA. We've just talked about the RDA. And so those were paying back for the infrastructure. And then when they were released, that property tax jumped for that new growth
Right.
that happened. And so they make up a significant component of the overall city property tax.
So help me, this is something that I've been thinking about lately. I don't think we've been prudent. I think we planned well. Okay? I think by bringing in those industries and bringing them in, and all of a sudden their tax base hits the books, we didn't need to raise taxes. So we can't go and say, oh, we failed as a city to raise taxes every year when we were decades ago brought in these industries through good planning, and you see how that helped us?
Absolutely.
So
I agree with that.
I think that those are solutions that are being overlooked. Okay, we have done nothing since I've been in to get industry here in town, to really work towards getting retail businesses here in town to help pad that base so we don't have to come up with these kind of numbers. You see what I mean? That's a frustration of mine.
I would agree to a certain extent that industry hasn't really expanded. I'm gonna question the haven't done anything, because I have been involved on the side for at least 2, if not 3, businesses that were very quietly discussed as
That's
to
why we
coming-
think anything, because we weren't even involved with some of those.
At
You
some
know,
point,
And so city council doesn't even know it's happening.
Well, there's certain ones where they have to keep it very quiet until they make a decision, and then I think a couple of those, at least, we come back to tell the city council that there wasn't success on those. I think what some of those things that were detriments in some of those decisions may be helped by what we're trying to do here and set the city up to where we can attract businesses in. Mayor, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Oh,
but
no, I agree with Brett. I think that this is an important part of the pie here, is to be able to attract the right kind of industry. You know, I think when we kind of took a step back was when we were trying to develop our infrastructure, water in particular, and now since then, what we found is there's been maybe the right kind of industry that's been looking at us, you know, more of a distribution centers and things like that that aren't intensive or infrastructure, you know, water users and sewer and that kind of thing. So they we're looking at that, you know, and there's some opportunity there as we're going. But I think Brett kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, I think we need to be looking at the right kind of industry to come in and sort of offset that, you know, that property tax share, so that, you know, they're paying a little more of the share of it and taking a little, giving the homeowners some relief. That's a good comment.
Same thing through retail. You know, 20% of the money can go towards, am I right? 20% of sales tax we can put towards police officers, whatever we need to as far as employees.
that's kind of the current practice that we're doing is
Yeah.
80 to capital and 20 to operating. So yeah, if we could increase retail sales, that obviously comes through 2 things, having a retail base and also having population.
Correct.
I've got somebody from a banking standpoint, over the last 10 years or so, you know, this is more complicated than simply saying we need to bring in more business. People would come here if they're going to make more money. There's no doubt about it. Economics drive everything. So I'm involved with a company out in Thatcher that was purchased by a regional company on the East Coast, and Hess's up in Malad were purchased by the same company. And I've been involved with enough conversation to know that there were many companies, and you guys know this, you're just not talking. Many companies that were interested in our area, because we're right on the hub of 84 and I-15 going up. It's a great spot. So when they come here and really start taking a look at us, we have no employees. Hess has told me, what are you going to do to get employees in that area, because you've been overlooked? So they leave us and they go to Tooele. Look how Tooele, their tax base is unbelievable, because they're picking up these companies that we need to be picking up here. So our unemployment area in this area is what, Sean?
2%.
2%? So when a company comes in, they love the area, they want to come here, but there's no employees to hire. And so that's why we haven't been getting any economic development from the commercial side is because we have no employees here. So hopefully, with Madison and that type of stuff, I mean, that's been the idea behind this thing. There'd be enough base in the employee area where they could start hiring is what, you know, is what the hope is. I need to take one more step. So I have people come and hit me, we need another grocery store in town. That'd be great. And there would be another grocery store in town if somebody thought they could make money at it. Where there's two in town, it's always economically driven. And so
Population driven too.
it's population driven. And so an area will explode at 50,000. That's been documented over and over again. But Brett's right. We need, it would be great to get more industry in here, and the right kind of industries that don't use water. But we need employees, and it's just it's a gradual growth thing that happens that we haven't seen really happen yet. So
I was talking to one of the head people at Nucor and talking about employees, talking about this very situation. And what we see sort of a churning going on. You know, you've got employees that work at Nucor, and then, you know, there's competition with all these industries, and they're just competing against the same sort of group of people. But one thing that did come out the other day in this inland port meeting that we had is that about we export it, or there's what, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people, 15,000 or something like that, leave Box Elder County and go work south of here, you know, and then drive back and forth. And if you go over to the crossroads at about 5 o'clock in the evening, you'll find out all these people are coming home. But we do export a lot of people in terms of jobs. They're going somewhere else to get a job, to their 8 to 5 job. If we could bring in some of this industry and we can attract those people to stay home, I think they'd want to do that. So, yeah, this is an important part of what we need to be talking about, and I think there is some opportunity here that's going on right as we speak. So, anybody else have any questions for Curtis?
Another question.
Yeah, sure.
Can you break down for me? Your slides won't show up.
Oh, really?
So I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It's the internet here, I think. Of the 1,020,090, something like that number, how does that break down? What?
So let me get the slide here. So in the police department, it's $887,909.
887 what?
Just do
909.
888.
Okay.
It's easier.
888. And then in the planning department, to fund their additional expenses, is 133,000.
132?
133.
Okay, and did you break out that, the police per employee?
Yes.
110,
Yes, yeah.
110?
110 employee.
And how much for the office?
The office was 90. And let's see here. And the sergeant was 130, I think.
38 or something.
120, 126 for the sergeant, 106 for each police officer,
106?
106, and 90,000 for the office staff,
I apologize. What was the sergeant again?
126.
126. And
And then the additional money is the ongoing costs. So Dustin gave me the spreadsheet of how much they're gonna, with like merit pay and the office supplies and the truck that they're gonna buy and the
Benefits.
all the, well, benefits is included in the numbers that I give you. So
but part of the 106 does not include their police vehicle and all that. So what was there wasn't there a cost on those as well?
yeah, it was. I mean, I'd have to do the math real quick. I pull up my calculation to you, but what was it? 887.
Yeah, 888.
So 888 minus 90 minus 126. About 350,000.
Or
Not per. 350 for the additional police equipment, supplies,
vehicles and things.
ongoing expenses.
And we're asking for one office staff, 3 officers and a sergeant?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for?
I got to bring up a point while we're stopped here talking about it. We've been doing this. Here's the budgets that we've worked on. I mean, I've been tracking these numbers all the way through since March. We've been pounding on these numbers. And when we came in here in April, there was an amount transfer balance to be appropriated, 907,000, which basically looked like a slush fund to me. And I zeroed in on that thing and thought there finally has been defined what the excess in the budget is. Well, we've went through this thing, and that 907,000, I met with Curtis before this meeting to make sure I understood what was going on, but the final budget has that 907,000 spelled out already to transfer into the capital projects, which we've never done this before on the budget. This should have happened a long time ago, and it's happening. And so we're helping decide as the city council where those excess funds are being transferred into, like the capital projects, the fire department, the RDA funds, transportation, which is the streets and that type of stuff. So I've kind of come to the conclusion that this is pretty tight on the budget, that I'm actually okay with it. I thought there was excess, but there's not.
Thank you for those comments. Anybody else? Connie, Wes, Rick? No, good to go.
Mine.
Can I just say one thing? I feel like we have been well informed as a city council. And it has to do with right here, who's in front of us. Thank you. Because over the last 2 weeks, I've had some really troubled citizens come to me with lots of information that I have taken into consideration. But with those questions have come answers, and it's solidified my feelings about the direction we should go. Because of their questions, because of their maybe even misinformation, it has solidified for me the direction the city should go, and that it's time to quit kicking the can down the road. And so anyway, I can't say thank you enough.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, it's just right.
Very good.
Yeah, you guys, the time you put into it, you put it back in layman terms for us 3 different times. This is what we wanted to see. You showed it to us, and I'm like Connie. There's a lot of people that's asking. When you say, because we have all the answers from you guys, it's kind of the same thing. So,
Yep.
thank you.
So when I hear falsehoods, when I hear things that are not right, I just kind of turn my head and say, that's not true. And I can say it with extreme confidence that is not true, because Lyle has seen it from the financial numbers perspective, and we all see it from a different angle. But I know that we have amazing people that work for Tree Mountain City that help us. And most of us live here, so what matters? This is our home.
I've been involved in this with the council and with Curtis and Mark and Sean. I think since February, we started working on this, and we had, I don't know how many meetings we've had going through all of this, and I just like to, there's been a lot of time and effort spent to get us to this point. And, you know, as I keep thinking, you know, this benefit cost stuff that we used to learn in school, benefit cost analysis and all of this kind of thing. And I think in this case, there is a cost, you know, and it's going to be a cost to the residents and the businesses and industry and everybody else, everybody that has property. But I think the benefit outweighs the cost in this case. That's where I keep coming in and looking at, you know, it's hard to put a dollar value on, it's
Life.
harder to put a dollar value on public safety and making sure officers are safe and they're not out there patrolling at nighttime by themselves and being called into a family dispute or something like that by themselves. But it's also something that is going to benefit the rest of the community from a public safety standpoint and from a planning for the future standpoint and all of that kind of thing. All of those kinds of things is real hard to put a dollar value on, but there is value to it. And so I see that this is a good thing. So we have a few minutes here. Let's quickly go through the agenda and make sure that we're kind of there. We have, let's see, we'll talk about the declaration of conflicts of interest and that kind of thing. We're going to have Shari, 30 years. Woohoo.
Wow.
So we're going to recognize Shari and Shane Price. Hopefully he'll be here tonight.
I'll have a little write-up Zach sent
For
me.
Shane? Okay, and then Blaine, if he's going to come. Blaine is our guy that's been taking care of the pots on Main Street for 10 years and made sure they were watered and everything. He decided it was time to maybe step down. He's
85?
85 years old. I guess it was time. So, let's see. Brady is here, I think, somewhere. I saw his face for a little bit.
Yeah, he's
ago.
out there.
He's out there. Okay, we're going to swear in Brady Hanson. Public hearing tonight. Let's see. Oh, I'm trying to kind of zoom through this a little bit. Let's see. Let's jump down. We've talked quite a bit about the property tax. Let's jump down to the solid waste. And Sean, can you kind of bring us up to
Yeah.
speed on that a little bit, and so we understand what the negotiations that went on and everything to get us to this point.
Yeah, you may recall that we talked about this on August 6th and essentially approved in concept some of the terms that we were going to structure this agreement out around. And Econo Waste has been great to work with. I think a couple of things that I just want to make you aware of. With this negotiation, there is an annual increase commensurate with 4%, and that's cost of living on operational costs. There's also an opportunity for there to be an increase if the tipping fees associated with Box Elder County landfill accepting our waste increase. Because these are defined and known parameters in which increases would be authorized, we've made it an administrative process for those fees to increase and empowered Shari and the mayor and myself to implement those. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that, of how that's structured. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of is that I think one of the big changes to our benefit, and we're appreciative of Econo Waste working through this, is essentially bringing anyone within the city limits that has a can, an automated can, under the contract. Because right now, or our contract that's essentially ending, defines it such that multifamily, whether they have a can or not, is contract independent of our contract. And that's not a good situation for several reasons, and we can go into that. But short of explaining all the benefits affiliated with this approach, it really puts us in a good position as that section of the city has continued to grow. There is a cost with needing to purchase garbage cans to catch up, because right now those cans for those individuals were supplied at Econoways or by Econoway. So we're going to purchase their cans in order to bring them under. And I think it's going to increase our count by about 400 people. And of course, that's going to grow over time. So I'm glad we're able to make this change now. Going forward, we'll exact, garbage cans when we approve building permits, and that's how we'll move forward. I think just a couple things to mention to you. The recycling program is something that we're going to watch closely. There's some parameters within the contract that define potentially what increases might occur with providing that service. The biggest issue that's occurred in this term, the term that we're ending, is the location of where recycling is hauled to. It used to be hauled into Deweyville with Hillside Recycling, and it's been years now since that's been shut down, and it's really made recycling more expensive. And so anyways, there's going to be a 6-month period where we watch what happens with recycling, because we're going to move all the pricing up to the same. It's going to be essentially a balanced or equalized pricing for all services. So whether you're recycling, you have a second can, or your first can, it's all $12 at present time. And so there might be changes where people drop recycling. And in some cases, honestly, I think we suspect that people were potentially using recycling as the cheapest option, but they weren't really recycling. And that was essentially undermining, those loads being able to recycle, because they'd become contaminated with things that couldn't be recycled. And so that's going to be a change. And so depending upon what happens during that 6 months transition, as people either discontinue recycling or add, because we'll have 400 new potential homeowners that can essentially elect to have recycling services where they weren't previously.
I thought they was before.
Not through that independent. When they were independently contracting for their services, that wasn't an offer to them. So, anyways, at the end of 6 months, we'll reevaluate, and there's some pricing in there based upon the number of cans that are going to be within the program. So I think those are probably the biggest. Thanks to Shari in advance, because there's 400 new accounts she's going to need to add to the system, and her staff does a great job, and there's going to be some confusion and unfortunately potentially a little bit of chaos. We'll do our best to manage that to a point where we get everyone notified, but there'll be a little bit of concerns about the transition, and Shari's team does a great job in handling those individuals and addressing the problems and concerns. So
down to nuts and bolts, page 323 in our working
Agenda,
papers. So it's going to, what was the cost per container, per garbage container per month before? Right now, it's going to be $7.75. Right, that's the way I'm reading it.
Oh, well, see, that's it is a little confusing, and I've struggled with this contract because there's a lot of different fees and they apply at different times. So we separated so we're going to pay them $12. Of that $12, $7.75 is considered operational costs, because what we wanted to do is separate the operational from the tipping fees, because as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a 4% increase that's allowed under this contract, and we wanted it to only be for operations, not for landfill. And so we separated it out. But the collective, the cumulative amount, when you look at the tipping fees in 2023, it's $7.75 plus $4.25. So that equals the $12.
Okay, so So a citizen now is going to be paying $12 per can.
We're paying, so there is a margin that we put in. So we pay the contractor 12, but we charge, I think it's
$14.90.
$14.90.
And that'll be on the fee schedule that's on the agenda today as well. So
Are we
because of
upping
this
that
new
again?
contract,
Are we gonna up that again?
yeah, because it goes from what we were paying Econo-Waste to
And
$12.
this is the third time this year.
I think it's the
I
same.
think so. I mean, we've negotiated 3
Sorry,
times
second or
this year
third?
and raised the price.
3?
Yeah.
3 or 2?
We just
I
did
think
it
it's
a
two-
couple months ago, and then we did it, I think,
Yeah.
less than a year ago.
No, you're right.
Frustrated with that, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I shouldn't be here today.
But there isn't anyone else that can offer that service.
Well, we kind of checked the market to see what options were available. And, you know, we felt like actually it was competitive. I think what's happened is Econo-Waste over time didn't keep up. But we're somewhat isolated, you know, by geography. And, you know, the markets are continuing to change. You know, Logan Cache Valley area has changed a lot as far as how their garbage is being handled. But
I did a salary survey with the local people around here and then the new Cache Valley ones. And even with the change, most of them have that one fee. Ours is the $7.75 for the tipping fee or for the operation fee. Most of them have the operational fee at around $12 plus another $4.25. What do they call it? A landfill fee or a tipping fee. And it pushes it up to like $18, $19 typically. So I still feel like Econo-Waste is
yeah.
they're below their
Yeah.
range or very competitive, I guess.
And then people that live in the county,
Yeah,
They
they're
just-
billed on a quarter basis, and from what I've heard, it's $25 a quarter.
yes.
Oh, sorry,
$75
$25
a
a month
quarter.
is what, in my head, was what it was. So,
Yeah.
and that's what all of our townhomes were being charged, because they were individually contracting with Econo-Waste. And so we're bringing all those into the $14.50 a month price
It's not
range.
commercial.
Commercials with dumpsters, and they individually contract out with
Did
Econo-Waste.
we include those in the contract?
No.
Ours are. Ours at like
The city has 3.
3. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
in with these. I seen that somewhere in here.
That's typically outside of my experience. That's typically outside of what cities do, in part because they're so different. You know, each unit, and there's not as great of a need, in my opinion, to do that for commercial as there is residential. But I think Econo-Waste does most of the commercial in the area
Do a lot.
as well.
So back to my original question, the citizen's going to see a $14.95 charge per month if they have one can, right?
Yes.
And it used to be $9.95?
It was like 13, what's it?
1345 or something.
13.
How much?
13.45
right now.
Yeah, I haven't looked at my own bill for a long time, so it only went up $1 per can. What if you have 2 cans?
Yep.
And that was one of the big changes we made this year, was the second can increased to everything was being charged the same. First can, second
Right.
can were all $13.45.
So each can's 13,
45.
14.
1490.
Right now, yeah.
So if you have
it'll
3
go up.
cans, it's 3 times 14,
Yep.
which is a lot different than what it used to be, right? Okay, so the recycling and that type of stuff, how much is that per can?
It's going to be the same.
Be the same.
$14.90.
So that's your second can.
No.
Well, it used to be cheaper.
Remember?
Yeah.
Only dump blue cans twice a month. First and third.
But you'll get charged $14.95 a month, again, for the second can if
Yeah.
you're doing recycling. All right, now I understand.
Our deal there was, we pay $150 a month for the senior center, the police department and the food pantry.
Right.
So I don't think that went up. Not sure, but
I don't know that they recycle.
This goes out to
I think they
2032.
take it out there and dump it.
10 years. Yeah.
I've never seen a contract like that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Sean, I wonder if we could, let's see. Can we take just a couple of minutes? Why don't we take a couple of minutes till 5:02 and just talk about the integrated land use plan and kind of bring us up to speed on that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we've been working on this for some time. The Planning Commission's done a great job. The last piece, and we've had substantially the plan completed for a long period of time, but we wanted to proof the plan by updating our traffic model. Because land use and transportation are interrelated and have this special relationship. And so this plan is more specific and allowed us to essentially input the land uses and the range of density, and thereby ascertain sort of the impact on our transportation network based upon what's being proposed here. And that was a great analysis. It showed two things. One is there's a road on the west side of I-84. It's in our future expansion area, and it's called Commerce Way at this point, just to have some kind of title to that road. And it showed that it needed to be 5 lanes, essentially, based upon the proposed land uses, and that was an easy change to make. The other area of concern that this update to the traffic model showed was Main Street, and it's really the historic portion of Main Street. And it's essentially, the fact that we have a constrained right-of-way through our historic downtown. We have 5 lanes converging to 3 lanes, and that creates problems. So we adjusted and looked at the model enough to determine that it's not a land use issue, it's a transportation issue, meaning that we need to reevaluate and try to find longer-term solutions to reroute traffic through that corridor. And so anyways, what's being proposed here is that we move forward, adopt the land use plan. I just spoke with Horrocks Engineering. They're the ones who we've used for our transportation plan. They're the ones who updated our traffic model, and they're preparing a scope of work to evaluate some different bypasses to Maine or different transportation solutions for that issue. But
Can we flip that up there, page 405, up on the overhead, so everybody can see what we're talking about?
There's one other thing that I wanted to bring your attention to, and it was in the northwest quadrant of the city, right off I-84. What's being proposed here, and I think this is the old plan, Lindsay, for some reason. Maybe you know what it was? I think you were looking at the memo. It might have been the memo. Anyways, we updated. Thanks for moving to it. We've updated or proposing something different than the Planning Commission reviewed and made a recommendation on. And you could certainly send it back to the Planning Commission if you feel like it's warranted. I feel like we've talked a lot about it. But at the DRC level, we had a great discussion about the development of where you see letter D right there and what they wanted to do. Right now, I think it's zoned general commercial, which is, I think, the only area in the city that's zoned that way. They wanted to do a truck stop, but there's a lot of existing residents that surround that on larger lots. And so we really looked and worked at trying to figure out how those two land uses could coexist. And really what this future land use plan envisions is more of a neighborhood commercial area. And so previously it was shown as there was more multifamily that was being contemplated in this section. And what I'm recommending, which again, I didn't have this conversation with the Planning Commission, is to bring the multifamily down below the elevation where there's a little bit of a bluff, and I think it used to be a gravel pit, potentially, sand pit.
Used it to
Junkyard.
Yeah.
Garden gravel pit.
Yeah, all kinds of.
Junkyard.
This has a interesting past, but anyways, to essentially drop those multifamily units below grade, below those homes, and hopefully what we can see is some commercial develop around those existing homes, hopefully a lower impact commercial. But, you know, we do have standards that we would apply and do our best to mitigate impacts. But that's different.
Let's have a
2 minutes.
couple minute break here, and then we'll try to get started, probably 7:05. it's 7:05 or a little plus. We'll go ahead and get our meeting started this evening. I'd like to welcome everybody out to our city council meeting. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your interest in being here, and we hope that it'll be educational and learning and something that we're all interested in knowing a little more about tonight. So with that, I've asked Brett Rohde, Councilmember Brett Rohde, if he'd offer us a opening prayer. After that, Lyle Vance will lead us in the pledge, and we'll go to that point.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet tonight. We're thankful for this great city of Tremont. Ask that we can work together and come up with good solutions and take care of our responsibilities as representatives of the citizens of our city. We're grateful for all of our officers, both police and firemen, and all of the many employees that serve the people of this city. May we discuss and debate together with clarity, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd just like to introduce, for some of you may not know all of us up here, so I'll just go down the list here and introduce everybody to you. Over to my left, over here, we have our city manager, Sean Warnke, Councilmember Wes Eastep to my left here, and Connie Archibald, Councilmember Connie Archibald, Lyle Vance, and over to my right here, Councilmember Brett Rohde, Rick Siemens, and then our recorder, Lindsay Nessen, over here by the computer. Mark Christensen, who is our assistant city manager. We have Curtis Roberts, who is keeps us all straight with our finances and everything. He's our accountant. Back in the back here, we have our chief of police, Chief Cordova, and Chris Scothern, our acting fire chief. And I'll introduce to you our hopefully new fire chief, Brady Hanson. Let's see. We have Sarah Mormon back here in the back with our Main Street management and everything, and all of you, and all of our police officers and fire department members who are here tonight for this very special evening. So we thank you for being here as well. We have quite a bit on our agenda for this evening. With that, I think I'll go ahead and council, do we have any conflicts of interest tonight? Okay. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda this evening.
I'll second.
Been moved by Connie and seconded by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes for August 1st, 2023 and August 15th, 2023. Any questions on the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve August 1st and August 15th minutes.
Second it.
Moved by Lyle Vance and seconded by Wes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is kind of a special part of our evening. We are going to recognize some of our employees. Shari Euler. Shari has been with us for 30 years. And let's see, do you have that?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
All
some
right.
fun facts.
Shari, come on up.
Yeah.
Come up here.
Fun facts of Shari. Woohoo!
Shari is a Tremont treasure. For 30 years, we've had her up front, and she's done a terrific job. She she's an employee who cares deeply about the city and about her job and her performance, and will often work, whatever hours are needed to make sure that she gets done things in a timely manner. And there are tight deadlines associated with the billing and ambulance, and she has done it for a long period of time, and we're so grateful for her. So that's the professional Shari. So this is the fun Shari. And she's fun at work too. So I'm just going to share a few things with her. I collaborated with Michelle, and I'll give you a chance to talk back on any of these items. But one thing you should know about Shari, she deeply loves her family, and a lot of her joy is involved with her family. And if I had to say three things about Shari to describe her, I would say fun, family, and food. And those three things she does very well. And so if you ever want to try her food, you can go to the Garland Craft Fair and get some Oriental food that she and her family served up for many years. She is very faithful, not only in her work, but in exercise. She loves to exercise. And one of the things on her bucket list is to retire before Jeff. Jeff Euler is her husband, and he has two jobs. He works for ATK, but he also works in the fire department, and he has a long run with the fire department. I'm going to guess 25? Am I close, Jeff? 30. 32. Wow, so he beat you, Shari? Wow, that's impressive. Both of them have a long years of service. So, so this isn't quite, I'm going to qualify this, but the question is if you could eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I'm not sure she would choose this, but she does it. She eats cottage cheese and jerky every day. Is that true?
Yep.
That's true. So, anyway, so yeah, if you have some jerky that you make on occasion,
Yeah, I'll take it.
she eats jerky quite a bit. So, did we get anything right?
Everything's good, yeah.
Okay.
Plenty, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, anyways, Shari's a joy to have. One of the things that she does above and beyond, her work as a treasurer, she plans some of the city activities and just does a great job. And so we're hoping Jeff works a long time so we can have Shari a long time. So, anyways, it's not going to be the same without her.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
See, Shane Price, Mark, were you going to?
Yeah. So, I don't think Shane could make it today, but I'll take that to him. I worked with Shane in the recreation department for a while, and Zach sent me this, and I validate it. Shane, Tremont Recreation would like to recognize Shane Price as a valued member of its recreation team. Shane stepped in as an adult softball official after both previous longtime officials had retired. He is willing to fill in at any capacity when needed. He has helped the department as an official, a junior jazz supervisor, a pickleball instructor, and currently he's running our adult cornhole leagues. And we'd like to thank Shane for his many years of service. If you've participated in any of our adult programs, you know Shane, and he's always pleasant to be around, so we thank him.
Finally, we have Blaine Williams, who recently retired from being our Main Street flower waterer. He's done that for 10 years. He's one that's maintained our pots, flower pots on Main Street all these years, and he's 85 years old, I think. He thought maybe it's time that he steps down a little bit from it. So Blaine's done a fantastic job. If you were there at 5 o'clock in the morning, you would see
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning, you'd see Blaine going up and down Main Street, watering each and every one of those pots, and we just appreciate him very much for that. We'll make sure he gets his recognition. All right, appointments and oath of office. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-49, appointing Brady Hanson to serve as the Tremonton Fire Chief. Sean, first of all, thank you. We appreciate so much getting to know you over the last little while and your dedicated service and the great addition that you are going to be to our fire department and to our city. And I turn the time over to Sean.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I would just say good things come to those who wait, and we've waited, and we definitely have a good thing in Brady, and we appreciate him. He has an outstanding track record, proven track record, very knowledgeable in everything fire and EMS, but he's also got a great demeanor, and he's just going to be a terrific addition to the department. So we're looking forward to putting his good skills and expertise to work here, and we'll be better for it, and the service will continue to move forward and under his watch in a terrific way. So the other thing I was just going to mention is I believe that Chris set up the fire department station as a place where people could step over afterwards. So after we appoint him and swear him in, those who want to congratulate him, unfortunately, will need to stay here and continue city business, but you can move over to the fire department, and I believe there's some space available and potentially some refreshments.
Oh, good.
So.
Very good. Okay, council, I guess we have,
I'll make a motion. But before we do that, we want to thank Chris for the many, many months that you've been stepping in. And again, thanks to the whole fire department for everything that's happened. I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 23-49, appointing Brady Hanson to serve as Tremont City Fire Chief.
I'll second it.
motioned by Lyle Vance and seconded by Wes. Let's see, over here on this side, Wes, do you want
West
to?
Side.
Bonnie Archibald, aye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Brett, aye.
Rick, aye.
Welcome aboard. We have one more action to take place here. It involves Lindsay to come up and swear you in.
Lindsay, when he's done, could we meet your family, just who's here with you? Introduce your family after she's done with you, please.
Come over here maybe and face them. Yes, yeah. Okay, I'll have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Utah,
of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Great. You with a copy and I'll.
Welcome aboard.
Could I make a statement?
You bet.
Yeah, you betcha.
One of us now.
Okay, all right, very good.
Just if I could, appreciate just taking a moment. I just want to really express a lot of gratitude to the council, to Sean, the mayor, for this real vote of confidence. I appreciate it a lot. I really am committed. I'm excited. The council offered some flexibility in the move and the timing and some of those things, and that made all the difference for us to be able to make this decision and be 100% on board. So I thank you very much. I want the fire department to know, and I'll get a chance to express this to them. I really view the fire chief's biggest job as to be their support, to be the person who gets them the things they need and then gets out of their way, and clear the roadblocks, get through the politics, and allow them to function as a fire department, and not to micromanage the details, but to allow and trust them to do their job well. And I'll stay committed to that and do my very best. I'm super excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brady. Brady, do you want to introduce your family, that are here with you tonight?
Oh, gosh, okay. So those of you who are my family, there's too many to go through everybody. Those of you that are my family, raise your hand, if you would. My wife in the back with our granddaughter, right there. My in-laws, sister-in-law, my son right here, Ned. And then those of you that are my friends that are here. Okay? So these are friends that I worked with in the fire service for many years, and their spouses. And as the firefighters know, when you work together for many years, the brotherhood, the sisterhood that develops through that is so tight. And these are my friends that I worked with, ran lots of calls with for many years, and we're still very close.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
And
It's okay, we'll probably sneak over to the fire department and
would if I were you.
socialize over there.
The last time you can leave city council early.
Okay. Wes, I put my phone number on that list that was going around. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brady.
oh, Brady, why don't you?
That'd be faster.
Oh, yeah, you can just go through this door right here and
Or right there, it'll just,
that's a quick escape right there.
Sets off a fire. Oh, this is awesome.
that is.
Thank you for coming. Awesome.
All right.
That's fun.
Well, that was a high point right there.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard, Brady, your family. All right, we have a public comment period right now. This is the opportunity to address the city council regarding your concerns or ideas. We ask that you keep your comments to under 5 minutes. And we will be having a public hearing immediately following the public comment period. So if you want to hold your comments for the public hearing, you can do that. So maybe we can say that this is for maybe things that are not related to the budget.
My name is Christy Bocut, and when I saw that you were going to raise prices for the garbage and stuff like that, I talked about this a year ago. I kind of feel like we're playing whack-a-mole with a garbage truck. You watch him go through the housing districts, and it's like the guy's dizzy by the time he gets done. Something that would save a lot of money for us as residents and a lot of wear and tear and fuel costs for them if everybody put their garbage on one side of the road, where it's applicable. You can't do that on Main Street, Tremont Street, I'm not sure. But in subdivisions, everybody put your garbage on one side of the road, then it's not playing whack-a-mole, running around. That is a way that can save money if we really try and think about it. I would like you to consider that, but obviously, you've already decided you're going to raise rates, but it will save money.
Good idea.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious.
Christy, thanks for coming with some solutions. That's awesome. Thank you.
There's always a
Yeah.
solution rather than raising our,
Thank
stealing
you.
money from us. There's always a solution.
Okay. Public comment period is closed. Public hearing. This I have to read verbatim, so here we go. To consider adopting the final budget, which implements a property tax increase primarily to fund the added personnel and expenses in the police and planning departments. The final budget is entitled the Tremont City Annual Implementation Budget 2023 to 2024, General Fund, Capital Funds, Enterprise Funds, and Special Funds for the period commencing July 1, 2023, and ending June 30, 2024. Public hearing is now open.
Christy Bocat again, and I realize you've already made up your mind. You made up your mind before the last meeting. I know that. Brother Rhodey, I love your comment on industry and why you guys are not being involved. You're the governing body. You guys need to be involved. I have a hard time waking up one morning and going, oh, we're going to raise your taxes by 50%. This has been an ongoing thing, but you haven't done it. I have visited with so many residents, and it's really sad to listen to them cry as they're going, I'm going to have to sell my house and move in with my in-laws, move in with my kids. That is a sad thing. I think there's always a solution if you look for a solution and you don't wait till it gets this big. I will say, however, police department, I do have an issue there. Several years ago, we had somebody break into our house. I was in the shower. I could hear the door open. So I did the thing that you're supposed to do. I yelled, well, I'll be out in a minute. And then I heard the door close. But I heard noise in my garage. So I went up and got my dog, put him in the garage. And he stood there by my husband's truck and barked and barked and barked. I did call the police. I called the police, okay? The officer came, he drew his gun. He's walking through my house. I'm going, the whole time I'm going behind him going, what the heck? The person's in my garage, what is your problem? And when he gets done, he says, well, I've done all I can do. And I says, no, you can't. Go out in my garage, listen to my dog. This is where this person is. He turned around to me and he says, do you believe in ghosts? And he was told to get out very, very fast. A few years ago, we had somebody break into our house. We were gone. We come home from Logan. My husband had to fill out a form on the computer, and as I turned on the computer to fill in the form, his name and all his information, not my husband's, come up on autofill. That's pretty creepy. And then I had a desk sitting there. All the papers were thrown around, moved around. My file box was tipped over. I called the police. The officer come, and I says, are you going to fingerprint? No. Are you going to take pictures of this mess? No. And he says, I can tell you where the person lives. And I pointed out where he lived. And he says, are you going to go talk to him? I don't know. You know, that's not very comfortable. And you want me to give all this extra money to the police department when nothing happened. I have issues with that. I have issues with the tax increase. I think it's ridiculous to raise somebody's taxes that high, but you've already made up your mind.
Hi, I think most of you know me. My name is Josh Curl. I currently work as a police officer for Tremont City. I'm also a resident of this town. I come here tonight to speak as both an advocate for the proposal for the police department and also as a citizen who's concerned about how we got into this situation. Some of you may already know, but I also serve in the Utah Army National Guard. I just very recently returned from active duty orders where I was gone for approximately 5 months. Tremont City has done some amazing things to help me serve not only my state, but my country as well. A few years ago, I deployed to the Carolinas to help out with hurricane relief, and the city granted me an extra 15 days leave to go and do that, because I'd already used up mine. And I'll tell you, the citizens of North South Carolina were extremely happy about that, about being able to have people to go and help them. But what goes unnoticed is the effect that it has on my coworkers when I have to leave. Just recently, I had conversations with a few of my coworkers who have said wholeheartedly that they appreciate my service to my country. But they absolutely hate when I have to fulfill that obligation. One coworker stated that my absence has forced them to take on so many extra duties and responsibilities to the point that their spouse and their children are beginning to ask why they have to spend so much time at work and miss every single family activity. Another coworker stated that when I deployed to Iraq in 2016, they had to work grave shifts for an entire year to cover my absence. And most of those shifts, they were working by themselves. That had a tremendous impact on their family as well. Prior to coming to work for Tremont City, I worked for Ogden City Police Department. They released a dozen officers there, including myself, that served in the military. There were times where almost all of us were going on military leave at the same time. Our absence had zero impact on the daily operations of the department. For Tremont City Police Department, though, when one of us takes vacation, sick leave, or military leave, it critically impacts both department operations and officer safety and morale. Officers take on more responsibility and often have to work by themselves for one person leaving. I'd like to briefly share some of the calls that I've had to handle as an officer working by myself. In December 2018, while on graveyard shift, I was in a vehicle pursuit that involved approximately 4 individuals who were later identified as gang members, and each of them had several active arrest warrants. I was able to apprehend 2 of them by myself. One of them I put in my vehicle cage, but since our vehicles only have one cage, I had no room for the other individual. Because the outside temperature was 9 degrees, I decided I would place the other individual, who was a female, wearing shorts and a tank top, in the front passenger seat. I handcuffed her behind her back and put her seatbelt on. While impounding the suspect vehicle, the suspect in my front seat was able to unbuckle herself, climb into the driver's seat, place the vehicle in drive, and take off all while handcuffed behind her back. This incident left me in quite a predicament and also left me unprotected while there were still 2 suspects at large. I often look back at that and continue to learn from it, and although I could have made different choices in that moment, a lot of it could have been prevented if I had another officer working with me. A few weeks prior to that, on graveyard shift again, I was called to Maverick for a suspicious individual. The individual was found to be high on drugs. The individual was also approximately 6 foot 7 inches and close to 300 pounds. The individual also made a decision to fight with me, so I wrestled with him for what felt like an eternity, which was only 9 minutes in reality. During that time, I took several punches to the head and face area, scuffled on the ground, and tased the suspect several times with no effect. Finally, a trooper arrived to assist, and even then, all we could do was hold him down until more officers showed up. Lastly, this incident has by far been one of the most difficult calls that I've had to handle. In June 2017, I was dispatched to a vehicle rollover on Iowa String. I again was the only Tremont officer working, and the closest officer to the scene. The vehicle had rolled and was currently on its top in the canal. I arrived on scene and found a female in the middle of the road. She had a broken femur, and after questioning her, I found out that there were 3 more occupants in the vehicle. I jumped into the canal in full uniform and pulled out 3 adults by myself, only to find out that they had already passed away. When I know I have military orders coming, or I have a family situation that requires me to take leave, like now, my wife and I just had a baby, so I'm on maternity leave, I feel an overwhelming amount of stress and guilt, knowing what burdens I'm putting on my coworkers and their families, especially putting them in the type of situations I just mentioned above. The passing of this proposal is going to be enough to bring some stability to our department, but there's still some more hurdles for our department to overcome. As far as a citizen, I'd like to share a quick example. When I received my driver's license just a little over 20 years ago, I drove a pickup truck that cost me $15 to fill up, and I thought that was a lot of money. Today I drive a similar pickup truck and it costs me over $100 to fill up. I don't think it's been responsible to go this long without increasing taxes or looking at other solutions. I appreciate Councilman Rode and Councilman Vance and their discussions about coming up with a new tax base. But tax increases this big is a lot to deal with. Working at both the state and federal levels, I've seen a lot of our tax money being wasted and abused and used fraudulently, especially with the military. And I know being a city, I don't know how hard it is to be a city council member. I've never been in your position. But I can appreciate the fact as a police officer that you're never going to make everyone happy. It's impossible. So all that I ask is that we try a little bit harder to find solutions so that we don't place these burdens on our citizens. Thank you.
Paul Fulgham, Tremont City residents. I'm a transplant, been here since '87, married a local girl. I want to tell these guys, I love you guys for what you do. I've had them to my house 3 times. One was when a daughter was choking on something, they showed up with emergency medical services. Once was when a neighbor, I live in the hood, was having some illicit activity and I called them. They showed up. Another time was on my doorstep when I lost a son in an accident. And I love them every time I think of them and the fire department. I hate to pay more taxes, but it is necessary. I know it is. It's going to impact me, my family, but it's worth it. If I have to give up my Dr. Pepper a day, then that's what I will do. But it has to be done because we need these fellows and we need them to be protected because they are an essential service along with the fire department. So thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
My name is Jeff Hote, resident here in Tremonton. Didn't intend to speak this evening, but after hearing some of the discussions that were just offered, I thought I had to come up too. I've always spoken in support of the police department being enhanced so that you have the proper coverage for all these fine folks, and I will continue to do that. And it's not just that they put their lives at risk, it's the mental thing, and that last speaker is the one that just captured me duly. Number one of my officers, when I was a chief back in my home state, responded quickly in the water. They were in boats, and he heard a scream, and he goes over. A grandmother is driving a ski boat, 12-year-old granddaughter behind the boat, and the grandmother made a mistake, put the boat in reverse. The boat went back, struck the girl, nearly took her arm completely off. My officer dives into the water to get her, and she bleeds out in his arms and passes quickly. The mental impacts from some of those things that these folks deal with is, in my mind, equal to the physical risks that they put themselves into and needs to be considered. My son served this last winter in Syria. Army reserved, he's a surgeon. They were on what's called a special mission site. They were under fire almost every day. Every day I try to connect with my son. He's dealing with that situation. Really not anything to do with this situation here, but I appreciate what these folks have gone through every day. So I'm behind that. You already know I'm disappointed that the revenues have skyrocketed in this city in the last handful of years beyond the industries, and that this money wasn't put toward this before. This has been going on for a while, and you announced that at the Truth and Taxation hearing, and it should have been resolved in the past, and it shouldn't have required this tax increase. I encouraged you at the Truth and Taxation hearing to reprioritize your budget. I doubt that happened. But everybody has to live within their means. I've headed state agencies, I've headed national programs, and you have to live within your means, and you make cuts where you have to make cuts. I don't see that here. I see much more willingness to tax. I don't see fiscal conservatism at all here, and that bothers me. I got my announcement last week of the increase I'll get from my partial state retirement, because I have a partial federal retirement and a partial state. And my whopping increase for this next state fiscal year with them is $18 a month. Won't even cover your tax increase, let alone inflation and everything else that's going on. So again, I support these folks and what they do, and it must be dealt with. And bar anything else, I guess the tax increase is going to be it, but I don't support it.
Council, thanks for having me. I'm Chief of Police Dustin Cordova. I'm just going to speak on behalf of the police department. We've run over all the numbers and all the data a million times, and the numbers are getting worse the longer we wait. It's not going to change. Now, just to give some context, we've been behind. This isn't, we're all of a sudden behind this year. We've been behind for over 10 years. In speaking with like Kirk Vertig, he had asked for 5 officers, and he got 2. And that's just enough to keep our heads above the water. I have 2 jobs. My primary job is to keep the citizens of our city safe and to enforce the laws. But more than anything, I just want this to be a safe community to raise a family. My other job, it's equally important, is to keep my guys and my gals who work in our department selflessly for our city safe. The only way I can do that is if we give them the proper equipment and manpower to do that. I come from a larger organization where this has never been a problem. I've seen in my 16 years in law enforcement a community hit this pivotal point where they need to decide whether they're going to add more manpower or they're going to wait. The problem is, and I'll give Kearns as an example because I saw that kind of change over the course of the better part of 15 years. They went from staffing with one officer to what it is now. Now, it's a great city, great leadership, very supportive of the police, but they hit that point and they pushed that, they kicked that can down the road. And what they're dealing with now is crime that's embedded in their community. And it's festered, and they have a ton of drug problems, gang problems. I worked as the investigative sergeant for our drug gangs and narcotics in Kearns, and I will tell you, it was like whack-a-mole. We'd catch one house, we'd put people out of business, and there'd be two more that popped up. It's so ingrained in their environment now. Do I think they'll ever solve the crime problem? Absolutely not. What have they done? They've thrown a lot of police officers at it. And now, if you watch the news, within the last 2 weeks, they had a shooting. One of those people I went through the academy with, I talked to her on the phone the other day just to check on her. And that situation, she went to that door, knocked on that door, suspect came out, and a shooting took place. She had 2 other officers with her on a domestic. The golden standard in law enforcement to be safe is you take 2 people on a domestic. My guys and gals are going on those calls alone. That's unacceptable. There's no way to say it. Now, had she went on that call 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have been able to talk to her on the phone. And that's how critical this is. Just to give some context of things that may have not hit the news or we haven't heard about out here, because it's a great community and we do have a low crime rate, and I'm trying to keep that for us. We've just this last year, I've only been here 1 year, we've done approximately 6 search warrants for narcotics. Now, that's not just marijuana, that's meth, heroin, fentanyl. In one instance, it almost made it to our schools. The dealer had a plan to interact with some kids that went to our schools, and that would have been catastrophic. We had an attempted home invasion where a suspect was armed with a knife. He was attempting to kick in the door of the residence, and he was confronted by one of our officers, a single officer. We were lucky. We're getting lucky on all these deals. That guy ended up complying. It didn't result in a shooting or something much worse. We had the double shooting incident where we only had 2 officers on at that time. It turned into a major event. We asked for help. I know a lot of people think we could just get help here. We didn't get the help we needed. I can tell you that. And because of that, we had to call on every single person in our department to come out and respond to that just to get it under control. We were lucky enough to catch that suspect. We just had a chase down on Main Street with Box Elder's Most Wanted, who was living in Tremont at the time. This is a wanted fugitive who was willing to do just about everything that we believe to be armed to get away. This has already hit our city. We have to take action now to keep that from ingraining and where it becomes a part and kind of a lost cause for law enforcement. We've had armed barricade fugitives where SWAT was called out. They ended up surrendering. Again, we're lucky. We've had a hit and run suspect. He was later arrested. He ended up having 2 pipe bombs on him. This is serious crime problems that I've seen in my career that I would never imagine would hit a small community like ours. There is real crime here. There are real problems here. And we are lucky enough to have loyal men and women that serve this city out of sheer loyalty because, as I'm sure it's been mentioned before, a lot of these individuals can go down the street, get a substantial raise, and be guaranteed to be safe at work every day. If this was your daughter, if this was your son, what would you have them do? Would you have them work in this environment, short staff, underpaid, or go next door, get a considerable raise, and be safe every night? I know my answer. And what keeps them here? I've asked myself this every day since I've gotten this job. It is the sheer love for this community. So my advice as your chief of police is we show them the love they've showed us, and we take care of them. Thank you.
I make a comment.
Absolutely.
Do I need to go down there? Can I sit up here?
Right there.
So, we're hearing the fiscal irresponsibility and the Monday morning quarterbacking on this thing. I've been here for 8 years as a city councilman, and we have patted ourselves on the back for not raising taxes. And, thought it was a wise thing to do, and, obviously, that's catching up to us. I mean, everybody needs to understand, even when we hire these 3 new policemen, we're 2 behind next year, correct? And 2 behind the next year. We've got 6 people we need to hire, even after this tax implication that we're talking about right now. I've brought this up before, the hunting dog, most of you might scoff at this, but, as a city councilman, you are the hunting dog. If you go too far out, the hunter's shooting at you because you're too far out. And if you're not going out hunting, the hunter's kicking you in the hind end to get out there and start hunting. We're in between that place where we can be criticized for whatever decisions we make. Again, we've been patting ourselves on the back for not raising taxes since 1997, as a matter of fact. And we have been scrutinizing the budget, trying to find ways to make it work, and we have. And we have done it to a point where we're behind. And there's also another thing that's going on here is the social impact that's going on at the same time. Last year, we had to hire 3 full-time fire department people, another 3. Now we're talking about the police department. You've got the younger generation where there's basically no volunteers showing up, and our older volunteers are getting to the point where they can't handle going out on these calls, and I don't blame them, and I will forever be grateful to them because they've helped our budget over all these years. So now all of a sudden, we got to cover a brand-new fire department, which we've never had to do before within our budget. And we're behind on police because we were patting ourselves on the back for squeezing the budget down, trying to make things work. And here we are. And so, being criticized because we aren't watching what's going on is it's offending because we've done the best we can do. So at this point on, maybe taxes and increase a little bit every year to cover what these things are a way to go instead of trying to do it all at once. But as a 8-year city councilman, we have done, I believe, the best thing that we could do with the circumstances we were given. And somebody might be highly criticizing us because we didn't increase taxes every year. I mean, that's really the choice that we've had over this deal. So there's my statement.
I'm Renee Kay, and I was here last time. Speaking about all of the ratios that we talked about last time and how far behind we are with our police officers, yet we are going to continue growing our population, which is going to keep putting our police officers back further and further, which is going to be a domino effect of increasing our taxes more and more. And I went back and I contacted the county about my house increase. It was like almost $125,000 more than what it's worth right now, is what the county is saying. They're saying, well, we did this back in January when the values were a lot higher than they were now. And so now we have to go through red tape, do comparisons, and make sure, and then they have to make an appointment to come out to my house to make sure what I'm saying is actually valid. And the thought that came to me of, yeah, we do need police officers, but we need to slow the growth so the police officers can catch up and catch their breath. Yeah, it's going to take tax increases, but to throw a whole thing of 50% out at increased price values that the county is saying that are ridiculously overpriced than what actual market value is not making any sense. Anyway, the thought came to me, and it's just kind of throwing it out there. Looking at the value of my house last year, it's still higher than what the value is now, according to what the market value is. But what if we go back to last year's values and even just instead of going the increased hike that the county's put on our values, what if we use like last year or even the year before cost of living or cost of your market house or whatever, and we use that as a small tax increase instead of throwing it on this higher over, it doesn't seem right in so many levels to be, and I told you guys this last time at length, Just to backtrack a little bit, still we get some taxes for our police officers, which are needed, and the safety of our county, but we've got to play catch up before continuing to keep growing, and then having people who can barely survive, with the lady that has said, people are moving in, having to sell their houses. A lot of us can afford it, but there's a lot out there that are just barely surviving paycheck to paycheck. What about those people? Their safety matters too, but are we going to throw them out onto the street because they can't afford to pay their taxes, pay with everything else that has increased? And a lot of that was mentioned at the last meeting. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Public hearing is now closed. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your comments. I tried to take notes, and if you'd like to stay after the meeting tonight and ask some more questions, I hang around for a little while and try to answer those questions for you. Anyway, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your comments. Okay, new council business. Discussion and consideration of approving the July financial statements, council.
I'll make a motion that we approve this evening the July financial statements.
I'll second.
Motion by Connie and seconded by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and consideration of approving the July warrant register.
I'll make a motion. We approve the July warrant register.
I'll second it.
A motion by Lyle Vance and seconded by Wes. All in favor?
Aye.
The warrant register, by the way, that's all of the different, every check that we send out, every expense that we make. So that's what they're approving. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-50, adopting the city's proposed tax rates, a property tax increase for the 2023 tax year. Council? Discussion? Sean, do you want to, anything you want to add to
I don't have anything unless
At
there's
this point, we've gone over this many
questions.
times.
I would like to make a statement.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to read it. I've thought about this for 2 weeks since Lyle and I sat up in Alaska and listened to the session up in
That's right.
in Alaska.
With coats on, no doubt.
Yeah. But and so I put together some thoughts, and I put them in. I've written this down so that I sound intelligent. So I'm often asked how I feel about this subject, and let me define. I understand that we must address the pressing issue of public safety in our city. It is evident that our police force needs to strive towards a ratio of 1.6, or in other words, one officer for every 626 residents. Currently, we're at one every 923. The latest data from the FBI Police Employee Database reveals that cities with populations ranging from 10,000 to 25,000 typically maintain a ratio of 2.5 police officers per 1,000 residents, or one officer per 400 citizens. By allowing our police force to, by aligning our police force with a ratio of 1.6, we can ensure a more effective and efficient response to the needs of our community and the safety of our officers. Furthermore, the concerning rise in the crime rate within Box Elder County over the past couple of years demands immediate action. We cannot afford to be complacent in the face of this growing threat. It is crucial that we adopt a proactive approach to our policing in the city. It has been mentioned that we need more police due to the growth in our community. This would account for 2 officers. The rest of needed staff is due to our city not allocating the budget to hire officers in the past. This has created a police department that has served very well in the past, but they have had to react to crime. We as a frugal city handcuffed their efforts in the past. A proactive approach means more than just reacting to incidents. It involves actively engaging with the community. And this is stuff that police chiefs shared with us, building trust and entrusting strong relationships. By being proactive, our police force can identify patterns, address root causes, and prevent crime before it occurs. This approach not only enhances public safety, but also fosters a sense of security and well-being among our residents. By investing in the appropriate number of police officers, we can effectively combat the rising crime rate and ensure the safety and prosperity of our city. I'm getting there. As a response to the public meeting held 2 weeks ago, I understand and feel troubled by the continuous rise in our property taxes each year. While it may seem that our city has not directly raised property taxes, the reality is that due to increases in inflation and county assessments and property taxes, the reality that due to increases in inflation and county assessments, property taxes in Tremont have significantly increased over the past 5 years. I understand the importance of funding essential services and infrastructure development within our city. However, the burden placed on homeowners and property owners through this escalating property taxes is becoming increasingly unsustainable. Many hardworking individuals and families are struggling to keep up with the rising costs, which is putting a strain on their financial well-being. Citizens are stating, we cannot afford to live in Tremont anymore. As city officials, city employees, and local governments, it is crucial that we actively engage in finding alternative solutions to alleviate the burden of taxpayers, exploring avenues such as budget reallocation, cost-cutting measures, hiring an economic development specialist to increase sales tax and commercial property tax revenues, and seeking additional revenue sources that can help mitigate the impact of rising property taxes. I believe in the importance of a safe and welcoming community, but it should not come at the expense of financial hardship on its residents. So I think what we should do is we should raise our property tax sufficiently to cover for the 3 officers or the 3 police officers that have been requested. And but I support the request of the immediacy of 5 additional officers and a planner. But I believe we can find room in our current budget with increased growth, sales tax, cost-cutting measures to pay for the additional officers and additional expenses for our planner. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Other comments, council?
No.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion this evening that we proceed with adopting resolution number 23-50, adopting the city's proposed tax rates for the 2020-23 tax year.
Motion by Connie to adopt the resolution number 2350 as stated.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Wes. Let's see. Connie, why don't you start this time?
Connie Archibald, yes.
Am I next?
Oh, yeah, let's go this way.
This way? Lyle Vance, aye.
This is no reflection on the police officers. It's a funding issue. Please understand that. Love you guys, and I want you guys to be whole. But I don't believe, it's nay.
I also have have mixed emotions on it also. Not that I don't believe that we need the help with the police officers. We've looked at a lot of things, and you need the help. There's no doubt about it. When we talked, and we've had a few gentlemen, and everyone's talked about, not only is there a safety issue with police officers, but the psychological problems that's there also. I'm very well acquainted with Brent Jex. I know him personally. I know his story and what he's done for the police officers, basically in the state of Utah. Boy, you do a tough job, and we appreciate it. I have a lot of constituents that live around me that are elderly people and are on a fixed income. And I realize what this does to them also. And they're very supportive also of the police department and the things that are going on. So, boy. I hate to see a tax increase go in like it is. Rick,
Wes?
I'm on the same thing. I know people that it's gonna struggle. I know people that can just write the check out and it's not gonna make any difference. I says when I come into this job, it is our duty up here to protect our citizens, our employees with public safety, public health. It's not an easy decision, but it's the right decision. Wes, aye.
Resolution number 23-50, adopting the proposed tax rates and the property tax increase for 2023 tax year passes. Thank you, council. This is a hard decision, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the hard work each and every one of you have placed in putting this together, and what you've done, the research that you've done to bring it to this point. It's a very, very difficult decision, and it affects all of us, everybody up on this council, up here, as well as everybody out there. And, I talked a little bit about this in the last meeting before this one. You kind of have to look at the cost and the benefit. And as we've listened to several of our officers stand up here and talk about their issues and everything, I think it's our duty to make sure that they're made whole and that they are safe as we can possibly make a police officer. There's an inherent risk. We understand that every single day. You go out and you don't know, and we understand that, but we want to do our best to make sure that you've got the tools necessary and the resources necessary to do your job the best we possibly can. So thank you, council. This is very difficult, and thank you to the public for your comments. And you think that we haven't taken them into consideration. We have. we've looked at them and we've considered them and we've looked at the budget over and over again to see if there's somewhere where we can make a difference or maybe cut costs, but this is where we're at. So thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Mark and Sean, thank you for taking the time since February to work on this, and Curtis for giving your advice to us. Thank you. Okay, discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-51, approving the final budget, which implements a property tax increase primarily to fund added personnel and expenses in the police and planning departments. The final budget is entitled the Tremont Annual Implementation Budget 2023 to 2024, General Fund, Capital Funds, Enterprise Funds, Special Funds for the period commencing July 1, 2023 and ending July 30, 2024. We've pretty much gone through this
Define the difference to me
between what we're doing here.
and the previous.
The previous, we're just proposing the proposed tax rate, and now we're approving the budget.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 23-51.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved by Wes and seconded by Connie. Let's see, I forget where I'm at here. Lyle, do you want to start it off?
Lyle Vance, aye.
With the passing of that previous resolution, I'll vote aye on this one.
Rick, aye.
Wes, aye.
Aye, Archibald, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-52, amending a residential solid waste and residential recycled waste collection agreement between Tremonton City and Econo Waste Incorporated. Sean, we've discussed this in our work session. Is there anything else we need to bring up in?
No.
Mayor, this has been discussed, I don't know how many times in our meetings. Econo Waste has been here in our midst, and I have no hesitation in making a motion this evening that we adopt resolution number 23-52.
Let's see. Okay, moved by Connie. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Wes. Let's see.
have to do
Brett, you want to start it off this time?
It's just one of those things we don't have a choice. There's no one else to provide service. And I feel I just feel bad that the prices just keep going up. Is there any way we can put a ceiling on that or something, or?
Well, it does include annual price increases, and there's some other ways that it can increase. I think the problem in the past is they haven't increased when they should have, and inflation's caught up with them, the workforce has caught up with them. The same things we're struggling with as an organization, they're struggling with. Trucks have increased significantly. So, I feel like we know generally what those increases are going to be, and at the end of the term, we'll evaluate kind of where it's at and what options are. But they've been great partners over 30 years.
Okay.
I looked up, since you said that in the work session, and in 1997, we were paying them $7.45. And all the way up until 2017, it went from $7.45 to $8.75.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 97 to 17 years. And then 2021, it went to $9.12, 22, $9.52, and then 23 was $10.95, and now this one. So just to put it in perspective.
Well, and isn't it true that they really have been holding off? They've held off and held off and held off, and finally they just couldn't do business anymore without it.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. They tried to accommodate us financially, but after a while they had to be able to pay their bills.
Kind of like tax increases, huh?
Kind of like tax increases.
Yeah.
Red eye.
Rick, aye.
West side.
Connie Archibald, aye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, everybody. That's one thing we don't want to not have, so. Discussion and consideration of approving ordinance number 23-03, adopting and rewriting part 10-410, garbage regulations of Title 10, Fire, Health, Safety, and Welfare, Chapter 10-400, garbage and litter of the revised ordinances of Tree Mountain City Corporation. Sean, maybe you better fill us in on
Yeah, I would,
this one a little bit.
really what we're proposing here is to have elements of our ordinance match our agreement. I think the significant, a couple ones that would just draw your attention to is what a commercial unit is, the definition of that has changed in our agreement with Econo Waste, and it's now, that same definition's replicated here in our ordinance. So I believe that's the most significant change. There might be some other smaller change, but I believe that's the most prominent one.
Council?
So even fourplexes are going to receive one garbage can apiece, or?
Well, if they're already served by a dumpster, if they have a dumpster in place, then they will stay a commercial unit. But if they currently have a can, they will transition to being under our contract and being billed through Tremont City.
So if they currently are a fourplex and have one container, they continue on doing that?
Through Tremont City. So Tremont City, they'll fall under our contract, where previously they fell outside of our contract and they would contract independent. You know, they would contract with Econo Waste directly. And one of the things that we're accomplishing with this iteration of our agreement is to bring more residents under this contract, which I think is beneficial for a lot of different reasons. But that's the change that is.
Billing, $14.95 a piece times 4 is what the new price is going to be on a container, on a commercial unit?
So did
No.
you say your fourplex has one dumpster, like a big
Uh-huh.
metal bin?
It'll stay.
It'll stay the same.
Same.
That won't change any.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion. Yes.
It's like the townhomes. The townhomes have cans on the south end of town, but they're not our cans. They are their cans.
Okay.
And he's been doing the billing and all that. We're just gonna pick up them kind of things. The apartments that already have dumpsters, they'll stay dumpsters.
Okay.
And say independent of this contract.
Okay.
Oh, which one was
This is
that one?
2353, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
2303.
2303. I make
Ordinance.
let me do this one. I'll do this one.
All right.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2303.
Second it.
A motion by Brett, seconded by Lyle Vance. Let's see, I forget, let's see, Rick?
Rick, aye.
West side.
Connie Archibald, aye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Red eye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Let's see. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-53, reaffirming and amending and enacting new fees and fines in a schedule entitled Tremont City Consolidated Fines and Fine Schedule, including but not limited to garbage and recycling, collection, service fees, garbage collection, containers, and miscellaneous fees. Do we,
Just the price increase and that, right?
Yeah.
This has the garbage fees that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And also some meter fees. Paul you might be able to explain those a little better than I, but when somebody gets a building permit, they have to pay for their meter, their water meter. And the price of the water meters have gone up, so we're just reflecting that increase that the city pays. And also, we are going to charge for a secondary meter in a building permit. We've just been picking up the secondary meter tab. So we're gonna charge the secondary meters as well.
So that will only be for new homes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll continue with
our incentive for the existing residents to hook up. And that way, that cost is put on the new homeowner that's coming into town generally to pay for that secondary meter, which is $350, whatever that fee was. I think the meter was $350 plus some administrative fee in there. So
So if somebody wants to hook into secondary water, they gotta pay $350?
only on the new subdivisions.
Oh,
So not the existing, yeah.
if they're an existing home right now, they don't have to pay?
They don't have to. That's our, because they've already paid in all the years into the culinary, we're treating the secondary and culinary as one utility.
Okay.
And this will be just new homeowner cost. If you build a new home, just like when you build a new home, you pay for the meter cost of the culinary meter, now you'll pay also for the secondary meter that will be at that home too. And then the new homes pay for a garbage can fee. That's part of their building permit, to cover the cost of that garbage can. And that's been done for probably 15 years now on the garbage cans.
Make a motion, we adopt resolution number 23-53.
I'll second.
Motion by Lyle Vance and seconded by Rick. Wes?
West side.
Honey Archibald, aye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Brett, aye.
Rick, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Discussion and consideration of approving resolution number 23-54, adopting the Tremont City Integrated Land Use Plan. We went through this a little bit in our work session. Council, are there any other questions that we have on land use that we didn't get answered?
Mayor, I got a couple questions. So
Sure.
when we're taking a look at that thing, and I forgot what you called it, the new anticipated road that's on the south side of the freeway?
Commerce Way.
Commerce Way. So how do the current landowners, do they even know this is going on? How does this work?
Yeah, so, I mean, I would probably say to a large degree, no, that they don't know. I mean, this is land outside of our incorporated limits, so the state code's clear that we can plan outside of our city limits just for this purpose. We have, one of the large landowner is Richard Equals, which is where this road would start, logically speaking. And the mayor and I had a sit-down conversation with him for about an hour, and some of his kids and children as well, and we talked about, the road and utilities and other issues. So the county's aware of it. I think they're supportive of it. We do need to plan for a large facility to handle all the growth that's in the county south, wanting to travel north. And so we will continue, to talk to property owners. One of the things we wanted to do is make this the subject of a corridor preservation fund request, and we've talked about it with the county, where we work with property owners, and try to acquire it with those funds, and work out agreements, but we haven't gotten to that point.
So this was brought up once before, and I realize it's 8:20 but getting an economic development person in our area, it just kind of, we're talking about paying more money for a city planner. It makes more sense to be thinking about the investment side. If somebody could be negotiating with landowners out on that side and trying to bring other companies in.
I think this is one of those areas where, a lot of times these smaller communities like Tremont and Garland, it's a little hard to come up with, funding and everything to
Have an economic development.
right. And so this is kind of where this inland port thing sort of plays a role in helping smaller communities, and this is sort of what they've been working on with Garland and to some extent Tremont. But I think that you're right. I think that we need to be focusing on looking at the right kind of bring the right sort of business into this area, and we need to make. What I'm hearing from the council tonight is, over and over again, is maybe we need to make more of a concerted effort to push forward in this area, you know. And
We work with our don't our county have an economic development?
No,
Oh?
not so much
Not
anymore.
full-time? Oh.
Not full-time. Well, I think they've kind of switched over to this inland port thing, and, you know, they did have, but that person is not there anymore. So, yeah, we need to make some concerted effort to push forward a little more.
And Mayor, without being derogatory,
Sure.
what would it matter? Because we won't know as city council what's happening anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so
And
in all,
as you can
in
tell,
all
that's a
fairness.
frustration to me.
Yeah, in all fairness, you're getting, these things come forward and then you're sworn to secrecy. And at some point, then this sort of comes out and, you know, and I think we're probably close to that point where this can sort of be brought up and brought forward to the council. At this point, you know, you can't just go out and say, you know, kind of pick your words carefully when you're talking about these things, but there, you know, there are things that are at least, wouldn't call them imminent, you know, anything can go haywire, but it does look pretty good. And, yeah, with that, but you know, you raise a really good point, Brett, and maybe what there needs to be is, you know, we identify a council member that is part of this. You know,
I just feel like if we can't trust our council, then who can we trust?
well,
You
it's
know.
just that you get, you know, you're sort of sworn to secrecy until they're ready to.
Okay.
That's all it is. You signed a thing that, non-disclosure, you know, and so that's kind of where it's
Just
at right
one
now.
more.
Just decisions are being made, you know, with our involvement, and that's fine.
Well, no,
Well, they are.
I
It's
can see what,
obvious, you know, because a company comes in and you're trying to determine whether they're going to be beneficial to the area or not, and that determination is going to be made before it ever comes to us. And I go back and you and Sean will say, I don't think that will work, and it's gone. You know, there's no debate, there's no discussing the subject, and
yeah, fair enough.
and so I don't,
Good point.
you know,
No, I
but
think that's a great point. And, yeah,
but that's always been a frustration of mine, so it doesn't matter.
Before we let the idea go, I mean, I don't know why we can't look at different alternatives and that type of stuff. I know of an individual that lives in our area that would be excellent at this without using his name, and he's already expressed interest in it. I've always wondered, you know, instead of hiring him on as an employee, if you could give him a finder fee. That way, everybody wins. I don't know why, I mean, we ought to talk about that. You know, a finder fee, if you paid him 1 or 2%, you know, that's an investment to us, because if you can get the taxes and that type of stuff, and or the retail, if he could be part of the retail and was actually part of bringing them in. I mean, we don't have any buildings. You got to find somebody willing to build a building so that the retail comes in. I mean, again, it's a complicated situation, but if you could find somebody to put the two together, I don't know why you couldn't pay him. I got to come up with an idea, but, you know, 1%, 2%, a realtor gets 6%, you know. We ought to be looking at it, because this guy's got ties, and he could be influential on helping us.
very good. I like what the discussion we're having here. I think this is good. All right, I forget now kind of where we're at. Let's see.
You need a
This is the
motion.
Integrated land use plan, 2354.
You need, yes. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2354.
I'll second it.
Motion by Connie, and second by Brett. Let's see, Connie?
Connie Archibald, aye.
Lyle Vance, aye.
Brett, aye.
Okay. West side.
Very good. Thank you. Discussion and consideration of adopting resolution number 23-55, approving amendments to the Tree Mountain City Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual, section number 16, benefits regarding Tier 1 Firefighter Retirement System Division A, Fund 31. Sean?
Yeah, so we've recently hired, so let me take you back and I'll try to do this quickly, but essentially in 2000, I think it was 10, the state legislature had retirement reform and they created two different classes of retirement or employees in retirement. Essentially, Tier 1 was those existing employees, Tier 2 were new employees that had lesser benefits, generally speaking. What we found is that Tier 1 firefighters actually do not have a benefit commensurate with other Tier 1 employees. And so we've hired a Tier 1 firefighter, and most communities pay essentially their contribution rate, which is what this policy proposes.
Do we only have one?
Well, Brady is another one, the fire chief. So we hired a captain who is a Tier 1 employee with West Valley City. And West Valley paid for that contribution in whole, which is what this policy proposes. And Brady is a second one, but there's some nuanced issues with Brady's that I won't necessarily jump through with you, but.
I don't know enough about it that I wanna, I know, it sounds easy. Do we not already put into his Tier 2?
So essentially, so the contribution rate, and we can get more specific and more detail, but essentially, I think
He would be required to pay 15.05% into his own pension, and the city would pay 3.61, which is completely opposite of what we do for every other.
What do Tier 2 do?
Tier 2 has to pay 2.59, and we pay the other 14.08.
And no other employees who are Tier 1 pay their own contribution. So, and it's budgeted. I mean, we didn't budget, without, because it's just so commonplace that the city pays that portion. So
This comes with hiring him.
Yeah, this just formalizes sort of what is envisioned and what's the practice is elsewhere for Tier 1.
Make a motion, we adopt resolution number 2355.
I'll second it.
Motion by Brett and seconded by Connie. Let's see, Lyle, did I?
Lyle Vance, aye.
Brett and I.
Rick, aye.
West side.
Archibald, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. It was quite a eventful evening there, and appreciate everybody's efforts and research and everything that you've done to make the decisions you did tonight. Appreciate working with every single one of you. Calendar and previous assignments, I guess we have a League of Cities and Towns coming up.
Yes, so that envelope that was on your desk has your hotel information and conference information.
This one right
and all
here?
that stuff
Okay.
that you'll need for next week.
All right. And Brett, you're not going down? Rick's not. Lyle, are you going?
I'm going.
Okay.
How are we gonna do it without you, Rick?
At a time.
We'll give you this time.
That's all right.
All right. Got
It's your last one that you're gonna miss, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah, he won't miss any more.
I won't miss any more.
No, you won't miss any more, that's right.
All right, we got primary elections coming up on the 5th. No council meeting on the 5th because of Election Day.
Are we supposed to receive ballots in the mail?
Yes.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get a ballot somewhere?
There's early voting right now. Tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Where?
Here
Okay.
in my office. Or you can come on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Oh, sure.
You
Okay.
still fill out a paper ballot, but yes, you can do it here.
When do the earlies need to be in? By the 5th? Postmarked by the 5th?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, that's what I
the
thought.
day before.
Yeah.
And so we have 7 people running?
Yes, 7 people.
And
This
it-
will only eliminate one person.
Okay.
The thing I didn't see on there was the farmer's market
Yeah, I
for September.
Farmers Market,
You're,
September 2nd.
September 2nd, Farmers Market. I'm excited.
We do have the city party too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, when's the city party?
that's your workday thing, right? September 11th?
Yeah.
Day of Giving or something? Really? Isn't that what?
Yeah, it's National Day of Service.
National Day Service.
It's there. Okay, but the city party's on the 11th?
We're at?
North Park?
North Park.
And just so you know, there has not been a very good turnout of city council at the city parties.
I've been there.
Try to come. We are the examples.
Need to do better.
Jeff cooks, Sherry cooks, Paul makes everything taste delicious.
Yes,
so.
he does.
So North Park
5:30?
Park.
September 11th.
And we've got the
And you said what time? 6?
5:30.
5:30. Okay, good.
League of Cities and Towns, the 6th through the 8th. Farmers Market coming up this Saturday, the first Saturday in September. Next city council will be on the 19th, so
I will not be here.
you're going to go to
What?
Japan.
Oh, Japan, Nihon.
Yeah, what an opportunity. Let's see. Well, you can look through there. I don't have to read them to you. Yeah, anyway, let's see. Administration
How about
reports.
unfinished business?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Where do we stand on that policy, conflict of interest?
I got a draft from Dustin. I didn't put it on this agenda, but it'll be ready for the 19th.
Thank you.
So,
Any other? That's it? Okay. Administration reports.
you know, I don't have anything, but I do have something to report under DRC just briefly.
Okay.
And that is that, you know, one of the things, observations that we're starting to see on the west end of town is that people are starting to redevelop their property and tearing down buildings to build new buildings. And I think I mentioned to you that Ron Keller, you know, was looking at redeveloping what was the Nicholas's trailer. And I guess before that, it was the bar at some point. Anyways, that structure is being discussed as an application that would be demolished and a new facility built there. So they haven't submitted a formal application yet, but we've met with them and talked to their architect. So I anticipate that they'll be, you know, they're putting together a real solid, detailed plan and proposing that. The other one that I wanted.
We talked
go
about
ahead.
that before. Tell them to bring in a lot of fill.
Oh, yeah, we have. Yeah, we told them that's the low spot.
That's the lowest spot on Main Street.
Yeah. The other item that we received an application for, which is to redevelop the Denny's property and as a Jack in Box. And so we're reviewing that right now. So yeah, we're starting to see with population and these other, you know, factors and market conditions, you know, we are getting evaluated and people are investing in Tremont. So I'll continue to keep you posted where I can, but that's one application that we're currently reviewing.
Rather have a, Texas Roadhouse. But oh, that's the first thing I was going to say, but that's what I thought I better say.
I think you should have said that.
Department head reports. I'll just open it up, whoever wants to come up and report. Anything?
I think we're good on the police side. I appreciate you guys. I know it was a tough decision tonight, but I appreciate your support.
I don't know, it wasn't a tough decision about the police.
Right.
Okay, that really wasn't the decision. Okay?
Yeah, the funding,
Okay.
I understand.
Okay.
It's hard to be caught in that place.
Yeah.
You're gonna, and I understand that. I've seen enough of these meetings to know that there's no winning sometimes, but that was the best option out of the two. I understand the sacrifice to get there, but it really is. So I appreciate you.
Paul?
I
I have nothing unless you guys have questions.
Okay, let's see.
Hey, I've been looking at the secondary water. How many people are actually connecting at this point? What percentage?
I think right now, the last report I sent you guys last month, we had like 1,300 on there. And that's how many people have meters. So that's how we track it is when we install a meter.
So
And
1,300.
there's some that, even on south side town that have not hooked and had a meter installed, so they're on that different rate program. So if you was to get the report from Shawty that I get, there's $12,000-$15,000 a month being paid in extra fees for those that haven't opted to put a meter in.
So the 1,300 that have connected, how many potentially
So we have, around 4,000 meters in town. So there's a quarter or more. And knowing that some of those meters in town are for fourplexes where you have multiple meters and they'll only have one secondary meter type that. So we're probably
30%.
about 30% with what we have now. I mean,
that are connected?
30% of our community, and not all of our community has it available yet.
Right.
And the north side, their big push will come next year because, we give them a year to evaluate how they're gonna connect and stuff, and then usually it gives them a whole season to get connected.
That's up
And-
in the old
That's
six ward
me,
area.
Lyle.
That's up in your
Yeah,
area.
that's up there. So,
Okay.
so that's where we're at, like, about 30%. So,
30% of the people that could,
30% of our community have hooked on.
okay.
And not all of them can. I mean, when we put in this one here, that'll be another big push. A couple big properties off of it, like the church and North Park, or South, no. McKinley. My kids go to that school. McKinley School. And we still have, and that's the goal, is to get the cemetery and those. I mean, we haven't counted them against it because they already have a secondary source. Library Park hasn't hooked on yet. They will hook on this fall. And, but North Park School is hooked on. And so there's big pieces of property that's come off. That's why it's helped our demand in those peak times, because now we swapped it over to the canal, not on to our culinary system.
Our North Park, has it been converted?
North Park will go on this year too. They already had the secondary water.
Okay.
Library Park didn't have. North Park did, but North Park, all of our parks sooner or later will be on our secondary system because it's easier for them to maintain than having to maintain their own special pump just for that little system. But we're gonna find a way to utilize that underground water and put it into our secondary system.
Right.
Because we don't wanna lose that, because that's water rights we own that can supplement water shares that we might not have.
Down on the park, the library park, you got more water there?
North Park and the cemetery.
Yeah, we will take that. What I'm getting at is we'll take that water now that we pump out of the ground and sprinkle on the park. We're gonna tie them into our secondary, and then we're gonna tie that pump system into our secondary, so it's feeding in all the time into our secondary system, which will reduce the amount of shares that we require because we'll be supplementing canal water with that subsurface water. And it will actually make the subsurface water a better quality water. You know how hard it is, and it kills certain plants because of the alkali in it? It will make it a better quality water with the canal water blended with it.
Or use the water that's being pumped into the Malad?
Out of the treatment plant,
plant?
that will be a future plan. And that will tie into our service area 4 and supplement those shares. So that's our goal, is to take all this underground water that we are using, and we pump it sporadically. I mean, like 2 or 3 days a week. We'll put it in where it'll be pumping continual, where we're pumping canal water, we'll be pumping it continual into it and blending it and getting more use out of that water right that we have. So,
Paul, can you clarify, a lot of people, and I know a couple of them's watching, they're worried about E. coli in the water or in the secondary like it was down in, where? Lehigh.
Yeah. When someone hooks up to our secondary water, we require them to sign a form stating that they will not hook the two systems together in any way, shape, form, or whatever. Now, we have to ride herd on that all the time. And recently, we found a connection that was made, and luckily, our city pressure in our culinary is 10 to 15 pounds higher than our secondary, which is what we want. A person, a family, whatever, hooked the two systems together, and we found it when we read the meter and sent the bill. They'd used $1,800 worth of culinary water, and no leak showed up. I go over there and find that it's running backwards through their system, through their sprinkler system, because they hooked the old stop and waste where you disconnect from the culinary. They'd hook that right into the secondary and turned it on, and they had culinary water going right back into the secondary system. So luckily, that's a beauty of why we try to keep that secondary pressure a little bit lower than our culinary, because we don't want people drinking it. And that's our biggest worry. That's why we don't want the two ever connected together, because we know that canal water has E. coli in it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and we do not want to contaminate our culinary
They signed
system.
that contract not to mix the two. Is there some type of legal?
As legal as we can make it without it being a legal form, it's putting them on notice. And what it tells them is we have an ordinance against it, and that ordinance gives us the right, if we find it, we can shut their water off at their water meter and discontinue service till they get it fixed. Luckily, I was able to shut it off on both sides. He could keep his culinary water, but until he got it fixed, he lost all water to his lawn. But we do have an ordinance in place. It's ordinance, I think it's under 14-1 of our Public Works Code, that lines out what the penalties are for connecting the two together. So we try to protect ourselves against what's called a cross connection. And that's when you put those two together. So that is a big worry, believe me. Because you see other communities deal with it, and it can be really ugly to their system. So.
Thank you.
Council reports. Wes, do you have anything for us?
Nope. Been a tough time. I hope somewhere down the road, somebody says, I'm damn glad you made that decision, because that extra police officer did save my son in a car wreck or a shooting we won't have to deal with that. I hope someday they can see that this was not made without a lot of heart and soul and put into it. Other than that, again, Dustin, thank you. Keep up the good work. Now you got more good work to do, better work with. Whatever the hell I'm trying to say.
Oh, gosh. I will just say that it's been said before that being on the Tree Mountain City Council is not about politics, and it truly isn't. It's about service. And our good mayor calls me occasionally and gives me opportunities to be a part of service. And we are working on the National Day of Service, 9/11. There's lots and lots going on. And most recently, so I'm really excited about opportunities to, paint bleachers in Garland and go to Hanson Park and kind of beautify that area. And there's just all kinds of things. There's the food pantry going on, the 11th and 12th. And most recently, the mayor and I talked a little bit about beautifying Tremont, and be ready, because we're going to beautify Tremont. And it's going to it's going to be a really rewarding experience. I've already had really great feelings about this opportunity to beautify Tremont. So that is upcoming. And the mayor knows a little bit about that. We've had we've gone on some field trips and driven around Tremont and looked at what we have in Tremont that's beautiful, and that people that are really knocked it out of the park as far as being conservative and dryscaping, and there's just people who've done wonderful, and we need to recognize those individuals. And then we also need to recognize, or we need to, I'm not going to use the word confront, we need to communicate with individuals who are not meeting the expectation of Tree Mountain City and what Tree Mountain City is supposed to look like. So we're going to be going forward in that direction very soon with the help of our police department, just FYI.
We got 4
So-
extra officers at our beck and call,
Yep.
buddy.
So thank you. And I just have to say, I have appreciated the opportunity to learn more through discussion and through talking to you, working with the beautiful, wonderful staff that Tremont has in place. It's been great for me. Even though it's been difficult, it's been really good for me to know that what we did tonight was right.
I'm curious with your beautification that you got going on, that's pretty much in the residential area. You doing anything on Main Street? Like
We haven't got to that part yet.
We need to, I think, sometimes we save our money up to try to get a home run. Maybe sometimes we just need to get on first base with, with some things like lighting and some of that. I know that we keep talking about it. We keep talking about doing something with, we just need to kind of do something about, talk's cheap.
Yeah.
All right. Lyle, do you have anything?
We've been crunching these numbers hard since March, and we haven't taken this lightly, this tax increase. And it's been interesting because, like I tried to explain, we've patted ourselves on the back for not increasing taxes for such a long time, and it's caught up to us. And we have been fiscally responsible because we've squozed the budget every which angle we possibly can to not raise taxes. And again, we patted ourselves on the back, and now we are where we're at. And this increase really, there's no other decisions that can be made. It was the right thing to do. That's it.
I've heard, and this lady here brought up tonight the slogan "Slow the Grow," and I want to verify that my thinking is correct. But as a city council, there's no way we can slow the grow. Okay, in other words, we can't tell farmers to not sell their property. We can't tell people to not build. I mean, that would be illegal. And so if the only thing we can do is approve zoning. And so I get a little frustrated, to be honest with you, that everyone's mad that this Tremont City Council won't slow the grow. We can't. We're handcuffed. The only way we can slow it is if there's a legal reason to put a moratorium on growth. And otherwise, we get sued, and then I promise you, our taxes will go up to pay for that lawsuit. Okay, and so I hope people understand that we can't slow the grow because it's against the law. Am I thinking wrong?
No, you're not.
We can manage growth. We just
Yeah, I think you're right. I just generally speaking, 2-minute explanation, I think what you're talking about is when people have entitlements that come with their property based upon what the zoning is, availability of services, and they're essentially entitled to submit an application. We have to approve that application if they conform with the law, and those are administrative decisions. There are legislative decisions, like you talked about, rezoning, annexation, is another one, but those have consequences too, when you don't annex and things are developed in the county. And, we worked with the county to essentially have the option to evaluate development outside of our boundaries because it does impact us, and in some ways it really hurts the city in the long term. But you're correct. Generally speaking, those applications that they submit that are consistent with our code, we have to approve. They're administrative decisions. And that's where all these are coming from for the most part, is these.
Okay, thanks. Oh, and then, Chief, you know, I got your back, okay? Okay.
Rick, got anything for us?
I was just gonna, well, hold on. Yeah, even if you do a moratorium, you've only got 6 months.
Yeah,
That's how I understand it, and then you've got to solve the problem. You've got to figure out a way to get through it. So even if you could put a moratorium on building, it's only for a significant short time, and then you have to solve the problem to be able to let them do what they want to do or with their own property. That's just part of owning land and living in America, people.
And the
So-
privilege of owning land.
Yes, privilege of owning land and living here. So anyway, thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, council. I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate the time and effort that has been put into coming to this decision. We've worked on it for a long, long time, and I believe with my whole heart that this was the right decision to make. And you know, we just need to press forward, and it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to work with every one of you. We do have, Connie sort of indicated, I better do some clarification there just a little bit. There's been some residents that have gone around and sort of identified some serious issues around Tremont, that you know, some of the yards are looking pretty rough, to the point where there's sort of a health or a safety issue involved with some of those places. And the idea is to work with these homeowners and see if we can't get them to, you know, sort of clean up their yards a little bit and make it so that it isn't a hazard and a problem for their neighbors. And I think there was one example of one of the yards, and it's so bad that people have to walk around the yard, can't even walk down the sidewalk because it's grown in with weeds and everything like that. So anyway, I think we can do a little better job as residents of Tremont and taking care of our property and that
I'll
kind of
go
thing.
home and mow my weeds.
I'm sorry, Wes.
Lyle, you give me up, buddy.
I wasn't going to say your name, but
Well,
You know, Lyle,
Not true.
I was walking in California in a big city, and it was just a normal neighborhood. I was surprised how many houses had weeds growing all over, and they didn't even have lawns in. It's everywhere.
Oh.
It is, you know, and as long as it's not a safety issue, I think we need to be a little careful in.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I think that we need to
Yeah.
make sure that it is a safety issue or a health issue. So, anyway.
I'll come mow yours too, Lyle.
All right, sounds like a plan. It's been, it's a late night. Let's,
Make a
I don't
motion
have
to
an-
adjourn.
I said that.
I'll second.
thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so.